Good morning and welcome to Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make the Elm City tick. And it's the inaugural 2019 edition of Pundit Friday.
Yeah.
Which is to begin here in the WNHH studio with the #1 pundits in the media universe. I'm talking about pundits like the dairy-free goddess of our grassroots radio operation, the belle of our ball, the managing editor of the Inner City News, and host of WNHH's Love Babs, Love Talk program.
Yeah.
Ms. Babs Rawls-Ivy.
All right.
We love Babs, that's true. Love Babs. We got the queen of quippery and the quintessence of compassion, the voz hispana publisher Norma Rodriguez-Reyes.
Hola.
We hope momentarily to have the heavy D Donald Trump devotee and WNHA station manager Harry Droz.
Howdy.
Marquisha Ricks is traveling. She'll be back next week to liven up our station. I think we got one other person in 2019, right?
Oh, Lord.
Hey, I hope there's a
Thank you,
2019 edition.
I'm talking about
Edition.
I'm talking about the DJ of deliverance.
Yes, sir.
The ouster of obstinance and ostentation. The savior of civility. The hurricane of heavenly homily.
Yes.
The conqueror of cannabis commerce. The bright light in the New Haven night.
Yeah.
Oh, my
Yes.
Lord.
Mr. Joe Ugly.
Oh, no.
Ugly radio.
No.
That one was intense, okay?
But it was cut short.
Yes, thank God.
But
Because we have a
suffused
long
with
program
feeling.
ahead of us.
Thank
But,
the Lord. It's
Happy
only a
New-
40-minute show.
Happy New Year, everybody. We were
Happy
off there
New
a
Year
few
to you.
weeks,
Happy
but
New
we
Year.
kept track with folks on
Oh, man.
A healthy,
social media.
happy, and a
And
prosperous.
Babs actually was kind of in the spotlight while everybody was asleep.
I
Oh,
was.
I was.
There was an exhibit at the architecture school at Yale that was very interesting. It was bringing a lot of new information and thought about Church Street South, the 301 unit, fairly subsidized apartment complex across from the train station that got knocked down this year, and all the families moved. It was a big catastrophe. But it had a long history, and Jonathan Hopkins, this young architect in town, grew up here and really absorbed new urbanism and the history of the model city and things that went right and wrong in our city. He did this great exhibit there about what was the dream of Church Street South.
Mm-hmm.
Where did it go wrong? And the one person whose voice you really heard, they actually heard two voices. They didn't tell you that you were hearing it from this very radio show,
I
which is where the
know.
audio came
He
from.
should, I should have penciled that in. Like,
Yeah, and also there were a lot of stuff from New Haven Independent articles that never got credit, but that's okay. You know, it's a great exhibit. And the show was Bob's Rawls Ivy
excuse me.
talking about
Can I just
growing
say?
up. Yeah,
Can I just say? No, it's not okay. You deserve credit.
well, in that case, Babs Rawls Ivy grew up there and had a lot to say about it on the show, as did Joe Ugly, who we used to visit there with his friends back in the day. And that
Oh,
audio,
they had that on?
Yeah, that audio
Oh.
was there.
That's awesome.
So then Babs went down, saw it on social media, and met Jonathan Hopkins there. So what was it like, Babs, to see an exhibit at the Yale's Refined Architecture School with all this history of New Haven architecture and housing and all this analysis of what it means for how we build our city and how it related right to your story? What was that like to go there?
it was interesting. You know, I've never been in the school of architecture, so it was great. But I had met Jonathan because you gave him my contact information, and he contacted me and said, Paul said, to call you. You asked me if you could give him my information, and you did. And so I met with him, and he brought the model at that time. We met at Fussy Coffee, and he brought me the model that he had worked on, and I was so impressed.
Like
this
the new
little
Church Street South.
No, the old Church
Oh,
Street
the
South.
old one, yes.
Based on him walking around
Walking
and
around.
looking at drawings and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So he made a model.
Oh, that's
Like, you know how you make-
awesome. Yeah.
I mean, he made a whole model of this thing. But
You sure you didn't just get the original?
No. No.
A little paint job?
Did you live there?
Yeah, I lived in Church Street South. I grew
As
up
a
in Church Street South.
teenager, yeah.
Yeah, I grew up there.
No, because my son, my brother-in-law also was one of the first Hispanic families to move.
Who was your brother-in-law?
Bonilla, the Bonilla family.
Oh, okay. I don't think I know them.
Because
But
they live
where they live?
exactly across the street from Lee High School, right on the
Church
Oh, right
Street
on
South.
Church Street
on
South.
Church
Right.
Street South.
Oh,
I think
okay.
that
Right on Church
that
Street
area was
South.
called. I mean, those addresses were Church Street South.
Yeah, those were Church
those
Street
were
South.
actually Church Street South.
I lived in Christopher Green, which was behind that.
behind.
Yes,
Right.
Yes.
So just behind that on
No,
the
I
right
went
hand
canvassing
side.
when I ran for alderwoman. I went canvassing in there. They used
Yeah.
to call me the Queen of the Jungle.
Yeah.
The Queen of the
Because
Jungle.
when I offered to do canvassing, they all freaked out that
It
I
wasn't
would
the- when
want to
I
go
see.
and
Here's
do
the
canvassing
thing.
at
Here's the
Church
thing.
Street South.
It wasn't the jungle when I was a kid.
That's
It
true.
was
It wasn't
not
until the 80s.
It didn't come until the
Wasn't- the 80s. The
to
mid-80s,
late
yeah.
80s.
And
When
it
I
got
came
that
back,
nickname because of drug dealing,
The drug dealing.
murders.
Right.
But Babs, what did you think of the exhibit?
you know what? I enjoyed it because it was and they had some pictures of the original, the colors.
Oh, I can imagine.
Because that's one
Wow.
of the things that you could not convey to
Exactly.
people, like the gradation of color
Right.
of all the buildings in
Right.
each
Right, because
part
at the end you
was
just
red.
saw it as like broken down concrete
yes. So
disaster
you forgot that
slabs.
people had gardens on their
That's true.
balconies and
That's
flowers,
true. Yep.
and you saw this beautiful color scheme.
Wait a minute. He had that in the pictures. He didn't retell that.
No,
in
no,
the
no.
marble,
Those
right?
were the pictures. He
Oh,
had found
man, you
some
made me
pictures.
nervous. I was like,
And he
wow,
found
yeah,
some
that's
original
awesome.
signs of like Diego Court and
Oh,
and
man.
places and,
That's awesome.
and some of the pictures. So it really was. There were things I hadn't seen in a very long time, and I was quite moved by it. But this is what I'll say. I applaud him for taking this on because I'm so glad that somebody sort of captured that part of New Haven.
Right.
But for me, this speaks to what kind of housing we believe poor people are entitled to.
Right.
Right. And I think Church Street South was a grand experiment in raising the bar.
Earlier part. Right.
When I was a
right.
kid,
Right.
raising the bar on what would be, because listen, the Church Street South apartments were way bigger than most
Well,
apartments.
the only
of
thing that was bigger
that-
at that time, my mic just. Oh, okay. The only thing that was bigger at that time was was Elm Haven.
But no, I'm talking about the size.
She's talking about 3 and 4
when you walk
bedrooms.
into the apartment.
Oh yes. In the size of the apartments, you're right.
Was comparable to
Right.
like a
You're right. A family.
a family
Correct.
apartment. Even the studio apartments were
Right.
because I knew people who lived in studio
And
apartments.
they were like double levels too.
yes.
because-
I mean, we had a split level.
And you know what
And-
else I've
and-
learned too? Because perhaps you and others have talked about community there.
Mhm.
And Jonathan Hopkins made the point, because when it came down, it got knocked down. Almost everyone in town agreed with that. He showed a poll that disagreed with him, because one of his points is that it shouldn't come down. He thought, as with the New Haven Coliseum, which got torn down, everyone hated the design, in his opinion, because it didn't fulfill its original vision. They saved money at the end. It didn't complete the parts that would make it feel more human. But he went back to the roots of Church South, which I never knew, that different parts of it were named after anti-colonialists from Puerto Rico
Yeah.
and Spain.
Yep.
And the idea being that we
I
had
did
a
not know this.
colonial model of housing with slumlords.
Right.
And Church Street South was originally a cooperative where people would control their own destiny.
No, it was never. It never got to the cooperative state. It never got there. It really was low income housing.
Low income, right?
Well, but
That's
then
what I-
HUD, the federal,
But it
Department of HUD,
never- it
they
never became
foreclosed on the co-op association in
And,
the
but it
70s.
never became a co-op. It never was a co-op.
I never knew it as being
It was.
a co-op.
It was
right.
trying to be one, but
Right.
it never
But who owned it?
realized that. I don't know who owned it.
Because
but
after HUD foreclosed in the 70s or 80s,
I thought the housing.
then they
develop-
sold
the
it to
housing
private
department owned
owners. But in addition to envisioning it as a co-op, the design too thought of like a lot of public spaces people shared. It wasn't one big mammoth structure. It was actually a bunch of communities named after
yeah.
these
Jose
anti-colonialists.
Marte Court, D. Diego Court,
And what I also didn't know is there was a controversy about
Christopher
Malcolm
Green.
X when he died. So they couldn't call it
Malcolm
Malcolm
Court.
X. So there's a Malcolm Court and there's a Little... 'cause his
Little
name was
Green.
Little Green. So Malcolm,
Malcolm Little.
And his point was that
Great
not only,
Green,
not
Little
only did they
Green.
save money in trying to take this ambitious design that, as with the Coliseum, came to be seen as foreboding and cold and about to fall on your head and concrete, he actually said, and as Bab said earlier, there were gardens, there was a sense of ownership and community. He felt the design not being completed contributed to not realizing that vision, and that once you went to private ownership and the federal government subsidized it, and this is my editorial comment, they were giving millions of dollars a year to owners who didn't use that to keep up the property,
Yeah.
but pocketed it.
Yeah.
And it did end up exploiting everybody. At the very end, he still wanted to preserve it. He said, fix it up to be a nice community based on the bones that are there. And everyone from the city to the public said, we think this place is so broken, it had so much deferred
Yeah,
maintenance, it's got to come down.
I think
agree
that
with
what
that.
what made it the jungle in the 80s is because of the design, because of the narrow streets where cop cars. And keep in mind, this is pre the police community oriented policing where they walked around. When cops couldn't go in, couldn't drive the cars in between those narrow streets. You know, it became a getaway. You know, you could run through those.
The Jungle
alleys.
Boys were the gang.
Yeah, but up at Yukon, there's also a place called the Jungle. Okay, in North Campus.
Is that right?
In
No,
Stuart,
I don't know
Connecticut.
anything
I don't
about
know.
Because
that.
it was known for partying.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
Oh, okay.
But I grew up not having it be called the jungle, so it's a little irritating to me
when you hear that.
when I hear it, because that does not speak to my experience.
Because when I used to be, I hung out in the, we're talking like from 75, 76 till 80, somewhere around there, that 4-year span, because one of my friends, the Hardings, Steve Harding?
Yeah.
They lived right on Church Street South. But his older brother, Danny, that's my best friend. We were in junior high together because they were over in the island at first, which is Quinnipiac Projects.
Yes.
And we used to go to Fairhaven Middle together. So that's where I knew them from. And then they moved over there, and that's, our relationships just followed. It's like nearly every housing development in this city I used to hang out with at some level or another, except Brookside. That's the Brookside
because that's
area.
far.
It's so far out. That's what. And something that my mom always used to say. She had a problem with that. She had a big problem with people being that far out. And I remember her talking about. She talked about Mayor Logue, urban renewal. She had, which is black folks removal.
Logue had nothing to do with the construction of Brookside.
Well, that's Lee, I know, but Logue didn't come in and just say we'll pull people back into the city either. He kept it out there. It was Lee, and then it was followed by Guider, and Logue, who was the person who she thought that was going to bring people back in, closer into the city and having access. That was her biggest thing.
Actually, Tony Harper opened that road so that now that whole community is connected to Hamden.
But so that's like 50 years.
When I was thinking about that vision of cooperative housing, in fact, New Haven at the time of Church Street South had a whole bunch of housing cooperatives that did take root. You had the Dwight Co-ops, you had Antillian Manor, you had Trade Union Plaza, you had Florence Virtue Homes, and except for one or two, all of those eventually failed. The most tragic one being the Dwight Homes, where after 30-something years, a month before the last check was due, they were foreclosed on because the tenant association fought so much and never invested in the property. What's the one on not Dwight Street, a block away, also with
on Edgewood Street.
No, the one where the murder took place with the Panthers in the morning.
Orchard Street.
Yeah.
Orchard.
Yeah, so within like there are 4 of them within 3 blocks there. Florence Virtue's still going strong. But when Tony Hart ran for mayor in 2013, she said maybe we should look at cooperative housing again, which she meant because she knew that Florence Virtue worked. But there hasn't been any effort toward that, and America doesn't seem to be thinking that way. Jonathan Hopkins' exhibit made me think about that. Do you think cooperative housing could work? Because we have slumlords.
I think it has to be on a smaller scale. It cannot be 300 units.
You don't think so?
No, I don't.
Because it works in New York.
I don't. I know, but this is a funny little town. New Haven is a funny town. It's providential and urban at the same time, right?
Yeah, but what do you think is the mindset that wouldn't let it go?
Finish her point about that.
So I think cooperative housing could work on a smaller scale. It can't be 300 units. I don't even think it could be 100 units. Honestly,
I hear you. But
I think it has to be 50 and under.
I don't think most of them were 100. I could be wrong.
I
think Dwight was 84.
Yeah, so I think it has to be under.
What about
You're right,
the
Church Street
Artisan?
300.
How many are those?
Yeah, but it wasn't a co-op.
It
probably was the thinking to be a co-op, but it never manifested.
They sold that one. They sold the Washington Avenue one.
All the Washington Avenues were sold?
I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. And also the one by Hill Central they sold in the last year. So Babs, do you think it could still work? You think scale is an issue? And Joe...
Now I want to know why is it scale, because that's an interesting argument to me. I'm interested by it.
I think cooperative housing can only work if people feel like it's a
community.
It's a community, and they have shared destiny.
And they're not some little small insignificant piece of that community.
Right.
So, but what is the difference between co-op housing and condo associations? I think
condos are similar. Yeah,
they are similar.
Yeah. And you're right. That's a great example, because if you look at a condo, big condos, they're not communities. When you look at big, I know for a fact, everyone who I know in condos, so who's your neighbor? They don't really know. Yeah. That's not a community. Community is when you know your neighbors. And then, it could be a beautiful development. It could be a beautiful neighborhood.
I think that's a big distinction between condominiums and co-ops. Mm-hmm. I think co-ops has this connotation of being much more shared space, shared destiny, and that kind of thing.
Okay,
whereas when you think of condominiums, you really think investment properties. You think I can rent that. I have, the right of return, that kind of thing.
And
Yes.
scale is interesting too. So I think it was Jonathan Hopkins who had a really interesting comment about the New Haven Coliseum site. So they tore down the Coliseum. It's been this big lot.
Messing with my view.
We, there's supposed to be
You guys
this
keep
big.
talking about messing with my view.
This $400 million project was planned for there that's now been delayed, and they got a new person to try to save it. Hopkins' point was saying, rather than think of that as one big development, why not have a lot of small projects take place in which people invested? And that goes back to the criticism of, in the period of Church Street South and in the 50s and 60s in New Haven, we created super blocks. We tore down streets and buildings to create big parcels of land to ask a big developer to come in and build on. And that happened at Church Street South. It happened at the Coliseum. It happened. And to this day, there's a new version of that where the new project is going up on Audubon Street in Orange, that whole full block there.
Finally.
And that was a super block created as well.
That's right.
But I kind of like his idea because what people feel was lost in urban renewal in New Haven was the organic development of a city where each individual, Joe Ugly decides I'm starting this company, Bath decides I'm going to own this one house with a store on the bottom and 2 apartments above, and that the collection of people's individual decisions and personalities and interactions drive how that block develops rather than one big person from above coming, deciding with city planners what's best for everybody and plunking it down. That makes me wonder about Church Street South. Now we're pursuing, I don't know if we'll get it done, the city is pursuing with the previous owners of Church Street South, building a project 3 times the size of Church Street South on the same land.
Paul, I think
with
to your
1,000
point
apartments.
around that whole, I think that thought can be realized in other parts of the city, particularly like a Newhaltville or Dixwell community, where you can have that kind of investment in neighborhood and community. I think these big ticket projects like this require big ticket thinking, and I don't think we can return that space to this a small kind of thing. I mean,
What if we did urban homesteading? What if we had 20 lots and people got to do what they wanted on each piece of land?
I don't know. I don't know if I would like that in
because you want to have it coordinated.
I don't know if I'd like that in city center.
And you want to plan. So New Haven's the first planned city in America. And one question I had coming out of Jonathan Hopkins' exhibit, which I think is the big question he wanted us to have, is how best do you do that planning? So he suggested that this was planning from above, that it really didn't take into account the people in the Hill, what they wanted in their neighborhood. Now, this time around, New Haven went through years of a process called Hill to Downtown, where we had everyone who cared in the Hill to come decide what kind of stuff. And out of that, they decided we want a big mixed-use project on that land that has both stores and offices, maybe fun stuff to do, and a lot of apartments, and at least 30% of them be affordable, meaning people, the Church Street families, South families can come back, although we're not clear whether there'll be 3 and 4 bedrooms still.
No.
But I wondered, watching that, whether we should have planning, whether any time you have people who think they know better for everyone, even if they're well-intentioned, not just making some money on the side on all the deals based on who they hire, whether we might want to have, because you're saying here you need some kind of plan where you have a lot of land so that everything doesn't work across purposes, right? And so the public good is served and we accomplish bigger things. I'm wondering if we just get rid of planning and just have people free to develop.
Oh, hell no.
But no, hold on. Why can't we have a variation of both? A variation of someone come in and have this big development, but however, keep mindful of family oriented. Because right now, these big developers come in, and what they're doing are these single occupancy residents, and I have a problem with that in the downtown area. I have a big problem with that. There are not enough family oriented in there.
We talk about that. So I think it's fine to have empty nesters and young single and couples without children dinks in the downtown because I think it's a denser area and it's nice to have kids in neighborhoods where there's more chance to run around and go to school and stuff.
But no, but by that rationale, you don't think that kids could grow up in a place like New York City, but they do.
Yeah,
you can grow up.
I feel sorry for them. They all need shrinks.
No, but and in the suburbs also they need even more shrinks.
Yeah,
There's
suburbs are unhealthy too.
Okay.
I like urban neighborhoods.
Okay, there's a reason. No, look, I think that you should be able to grow a family in an urban area, in a downtown area. I think that's healthy. I think also it helps with what you like to do, Paul. Commuting by walking or riding, opposed to always wanting to drive.
Yeah.
It increased that because the younger generation starts thinking, hey, I grew up walking. I don't mind walking.
Worcester Square and Dwight can do that in the Hill.
Excuse me?
You could do that if you live in Worcester Square, Dwight, or the Hill, or East Rock.
Maybe not. It depends. Sometimes you want to come across from Worcester Square. That's still a little haul sometimes. It's not until what parent would let their 10, 11-year-old just walk downstairs, walk to the store? It would not do that. But opposed to if you have it like how we have it right here, you have a store downstairs, you have little shops right by. You don't mind your kid just going down and coming right back upstairs. You got a mindset and got a time and mindset in your mind. So I like to see that that family thing in the urban area. Now, like Bab said, you need to have big thinking, and that's where the developer should come in. I don't mind having a developer come in and do something on a grand scale. But like I said, just do it with the family in mind.
Well, we have I'm sorry.
Sometimes I think we need to travel to other states or even other countries just to see how they do things. For instance, I know right now I was helping someone with a will that they just did. And this gentleman, he took his will and he owns a building in Lima, Peru. And the first floor, he gave it to one particular son. Then there's nothing on the second floor or the third floor built, but he left the second floor left-hand side to another son, the second floor right-hand side to another son, the third floor left-hand side to another son, and the third floor right-hand side. And I said, and this hasn't even been built or anything. But
okay, so he left it like the
it
development.
specifically
That's just going to be
them
fodder for the attorneys.
that they gave them airspace.
That's
Can you
gonna,
imagine
that's
that?
going to be
But
a
believe
fight.
it or not, Norma, I know a family right downtown New Haven who has it right there, right down here, who has the pretty much the same setup. There's a family that owns but it's not a living space; it's a office space, and it's set up just like that, where it was family member on this floor, that floor, and a son.
What street? What street? What street is that, Joe?
Right downtown.
We're downtown.
Right downtown.
Where?
And it's built.
Yeah.
But the
the building is already there.
Joe, what block?
He's not going to tell you. That's what his point
you.
is.
Okay, but I'm going to
because
tell you.
I don't know if they want me to put their business out.
But I can tell you that you're listening to Pundit Friday and the inaugural edition of 2019 on WNHH-FM, your home for community radio, 103.5, live stream, newhavenindependent.org. So Norma was outraged about something this week.
Uh-oh.
And I realized that in 2019, I'm going to try not. I feel like I'm a little brother to Norma. Every time she says something, I just kind of poke her and automatically
yeah,
without
he loves
thinking.
to pick on me.
Because you came to mind, you said, I can't believe that they gave such a hard time this week when Jamel Cotto, member of the Board of Ed, just had his, was getting reappointed to the Board of Alders, but first it has to go through a committee hearing to say, should he be reappointed? 3 hours, people lined up to say he's horrible, he shouldn't be reappointed, or he's great, he should be reappointed. And I thought that was a great exercise in democracy with real issues that had to be concerned about who's running a very dysfunctional and destructive Board of Education based on politics. And Norm, I think what he said to me was this because he was Hispanic, and that's what a lot of people said. He got approved by the committee, I would say, because he's Hispanic. That's what basically people were saying.
Paul, let me tell you something. I've never seen anything like this, okay? And
they just shut down Sean Madison as chief administrative officer. He's white, and they said no to him after hearing.
We have, okay? What right? Why did they say no to Sean Madison? Because of political reasons.
Okay, but you have seen something like it. You saw Sean Madison.
No, but Paul, how often do you see this?
I think it's a new development.
No, I mean, when it comes down to minorities, Norma, I'm with you. 100.
We have a saying that la soga rompe por el lado más fino. The chain breaks through the weakest link, okay? And the Latino community is always the weakest link. So that is the one that they always pick on. Because first of all, when have they ever done this kind of evaluating for 3 whole hours?
Sean Madison, they voted no. They voted yes for Jamel.
But here's the thing, Norma.
And then
do you just say because he's Puerto Rican he gets to stay?
No.
Even if he sucks and he's terrible at it?
He's very well. He has a degree.
I don't care.
A degree.
If he's not good at
this. No.
Norma,
this kid grew up helping
a lot
of the
good
families.
At this,
Why is he not good? Why?
Okay, I'm just saying.
I'll tell you why.
He has helped. He has helped, nurtured. Not only has he nurtured, he's been a good role model for the African American, because he happens to be half African American, because his father's
Norma,
black
she's asking
and the
about
mother's Puerto Rican.
You're talking about work he does in the community.
Without a mother.
No, you're talking about his work in the
the mother
community. But
died.
Babs is asking about what's his performance been like on the Board of Ed, which has been completely dysfunctional, where he doesn't ask any questions of politically favored contractors who have very questionable deals, but then does give a hard time to people who the political people are against because they want their friends to have a contract. That is really the wrong way to run a school
Paul,
system.
Is he the only one that has exhibited
But
this kind of behavior?
see, we can't have that. See, this is where I get twisted with you on this whole Latino thing, because he is not. I don't think he's worth your. No, I'm not gonna say that. I think we have to start looking at, can folks do what
job.
they need to do, irregardless is
and
not a
he
word.
is more than
Regardless
qualified
of
to do what he has to do. Okay.
listen,
If this is
there's
all
somebody
political,
listen, if somebody
okay?
black on that board can't do what they're supposed to do, I'm gonna say it. I don't got no allegiance to that because I have some allegiance to them because they are black, but not in the face of if what they're doing is harming
Jamel
all
is
black people.
more
The
than
majority
qualified.
of the school system is students who are Latino. He is Latino, and I would argue that the criticism raised questions about whether Latino students are not getting preciously needed money spent the way it should be so they can get a good education because of the game playing by some of the members, including Jamel Cotto, the way he runs hearings on school contracts.
Is
I think
is he a help to the Latino community or a hurt? That's the question.
I would like to think that he is a help to all of the communities. The
no,
African-American,
no,
No,
the
because your
Latinos, and the
argument
white.
is about Latinos are always pushed under the bus. So we have to stay in that part of the conversation, because if you're saying he's being picked on because he's Latino and not because of his
Are
ineffective
they going to
ability,
do the same thing to all the other members of the Board of Education?
everybody in that
I
Board
sure
of
hope so.
Education has been that whole board sucks, except for Dr. Tamiko Jackson.
I concur. Listen,
Everybody else on that board sucks and ought to get off.
You know,
Now, in defense of Norm, a lot of people talk about what a good person Kamel is and the work he does in the community. Cotto. I think what Babs is saying is that
what Babs said is about
performance in office.
at the position. A great example, Norma. I hear your argument, and I see what you're saying, having the role model and doing stuff, and you have the allegiance to him because you think as a Latino you're tired of seeing.
Because I know him. He grew up in the community, and he has a lot of goodwill out there.
Okay, and more than that, you're looking at, and I can understand because when I want to see African Americans or blacks all together move forward, I'm going to stand, and I'm going to make I'll give a closer view at what it is, their performance. A great example is B.S. Carson in under the Trump administration. I'm talking about Benjamin Solomon Carson.
Come on, Joe.
This guy
you throw
right
him
here,
under the bus.
I do.
Just because
he is the worst thing
just because
ever.
he's with Trump, not because he's
if he
black.
was no,
if he was,
he happens to be a doctor that worked
Trump.
on Siamese twins. What is he doing?
That makes no sense.
What puts him in HUD? Why is he in HUD? He has no experience whatsoever in HUD.
I got a problem.
He has
also
zero experience in HUD. Why is he not? You know why he's not in the medical? You know why he's not in the medical angle? Because Trump don't see a minority as being wise enough to be there.
Let's bring it back to New Haven, not Trump fights. That's your guys next hour. But Harry, did you have anything to say about this Jamel Cotto thing?
No, I just think that what Norma said, it's easy always to throw the Latino under the bus, right? And I know Babs didn't mean to characterize it in that way, but she had my problem with that Latino thing. If somebody says, my problem with this black thing, it becomes a different issue, right? And that's the thing, that it's okay. And as soon as she decides she's going to defend Latinos, it's an issue if you don't look at everything else. But when you have other groups, they're tight-knit and they stick together regardless of what the issues are.
What group? I don't understand that
hold
at all.
on. No.
I don't understand that at all.
What Babs said, Harry, what Babs said was her opinion on what she thought the person's qualification was. She individualized it. She didn't make a blanket statement like you tried to throw.
I didn't make a blanket statement.
She could talk for herself.
But I didn't make a blanket statement. What I said was, in this particular issue with this particular person, is he is he
qualified as he
is he-
does the job.
You did state that with that Latino thing. You did state that. And
Okay.
in this conversation,
Okay.
not
Yeah,
Latinos
in this
overall.
context, she's not overall
I'm not
in
saying in the whole world.
Right, so we don't
in
want
this context.
So we don't want to
No.
pick
This
on
is
Norma.
This is very important. Let's make sure that we clarify that, because that could sound. I understand what you guys are saying, what it sounds like, but maybe it's because we have a translation of understanding what those people mean, and that we have a clear understanding of that. Okay, I don't think that's what Babs was trying to blanket the statement. That's why I came to her defense. It wasn't a blanket statement. from
No,
what
I
my
wasn't talking
understanding.
about Latinos all over the world. I was
Right.
talking about in this
situation,
conversation.
because you did qualify
because
that.
she introduced Latinos are
Right.
always thrown under the bus, and I said, well, in this
situation,
regard, in this
right.
situation,
You did qualify.
you know,
Yes, you did.
is he the best possible Latino? If we gotta have a Latino, is he the best possible Latino for that Board of Education?
at this particular moment, he is.
What do you think he brings that makes him? Have you seen any decisions he made at the Board of Ed you thought were good on the Board of Ed?
I'm
Do
sorry?
you think he's done anything on the Board of Ed as a Board of Ed member that you consider doing the job well?
I think he has done what all the other board members have done. What is the claim to fame of the other board members?
No, but that's
I
what-
think
I don't
when
think-
you're on the
that's what
board,
Babs
but
said.
that's my
basically-
point,
That's what
Norma.
Babs said.
They all
She
suck.
said they all
No.
suck.
So
No, but wait a
why would you
second.
want to
I don't-
align with
Yeah.
that?
By the way, I don't think they all suck.
No,
I
no.
think that Cotto specifically has taken actions that were really destructive on that board, just personally. And I think he's not the only one. And I think there's a role to review how appointees do their job. And what I can't figure out is if the Board of Alders did a similar review of a white guy, Sean Madison, which they did recently, and they turned him down. Then they did a review of Cotto and they approved him. So why is it that you think they're being harder on Latinos
but
than other
they
groups?
turned him down, but is he doing the job?
Acting.
Right, but he's still acting. He's still doing the job.
I mean, I hear Norma's point. I listen. I get it because
Yep.
I listen. We know who gets thrown under the bus more often than anybody.
Right.
So the Sean comparison is not the same as the Cotto comparison, just on merits of race alone. Because listen, if Cotto didn't get reappointed, he'd be out.
Right.
Right. Madison is still doing the job.
Yeah.
He ain't
So-
out.
right.
He's just not solidified in the job.
He just don't
But
have
he-
But
that
he's
title.
getting paid.
But he's
Yeah.
getting
Salary
paid. He
and
show up
everything.
every
Right.
day. He's still doing
So
the work.
that's what I was getting to. I understand when I say I understand your argument. That's exactly what I was pointing to. I clearly understand your argument when you say when you stand for Latinos, because you see on the other side nobody's pointing the fingers as far. They may be pointing it, but not as far and as firm as they do for other communities, such as the white community.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't
And
think
minorities catch
that's
that
not
work.
that's not a good comparison, the two
No.
of them,
No,
because
they're not.
that cat's still doing the job, like it or not. He ain't fired.
And for
And
all
you're
we-
doing your job on WNHHLP
Yes.
103.5 FM New Haven, broadcasting live.
Home of
Live
community
streamed where?
radio.
Where's it live streamed?
Live stream.
The NewHavenIndependent.org.
Thank you.
And what's the show called?
Pundit Friday.
Pundit
All right.
Friday.
There
Man. Come
we
get,
go.
I'm telling
come
you.
get you some pundit.
So I know
I knew it was coming.
saw
That's
one,
why I interjected.
I saw one picture this week that was somewhat had all the groups represented, the main groups, racial groups in town. Susan Beiswitz named her staff. She's the new lieutenant governor. Now the governor Ned Lamont has has diversity in his administration. First black woman, for instance, being the budget chief. No one from New Haven among any of Ned Lamont's picks for jobs. When New Haven gave him a $23,000 margin, by far the biggest in the
But
state.
not yet.
23,000
Not
votes?
yet, because he only has half of them.
Every top job has been filled. There are a lot of important ones. You're right to
but
go.
in his cabinet per se,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
But Susan Beiswitz went whole hog on New Haven.
Maybe they
Now,
had
she
a
has this most-
conversation.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Maybe they had a
They had a
conversation
I
like,
think
look,
her
you got to
conversation-
do this,
This,
and I
yep.
have to do
No,
this.
I think her
Yes.
conversation was, I might run for governor myself, and I want to start making some friends in New Haven. That's what one theory is.
Well,
I'm not
that's a
sure
good
it's right.
theory.
Yeah.
Really?
Say what her chief
Or
of
she may
staff.
want to run for Congress.
Yeah, chief of staff is Adam Joseph. He's from New Haven.
Oh, ho. Who?
The Adam Joseph.
No
He
relation.
not related to
No
y'all?
relation.
He used
Let's
to
make
work
sure.
he used to work for John DeStefano.
He black.
Her press
He black?
person. No,
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 I-
they're not.
he's white.
Okay.
Her
Because
president.
I know every
But
black
he is
Joseph.
Jewish.
Oh, all right.
All
No.
right, wait for the tribe.
Oh, hold on.
Julie
hold on.
Mar Ortiz.
Joseph is the tribal. Stop.
Julie Mar Ortiz, who's a Latina
Okay.
from New Haven,
All right.
is her spokesperson. Sherry Phoenix Sharp, who's African American,
Mm-hmm.
is her top legal advisor. There are only 2 other jobs she had. One, they neither from New Haven, but they both worked in New Haven. Jimmy Tickey was Rosa DeLauro's campaign manager.
Oh,
and
he's
Sam
over there?
Yeah, and Sam Carmody.
He left Rosa?
Yeah, and Sam Carmody is going to be her working on staff too. So she went.
That's interesting.
She went to New Haven.
Congress.
So now
Yeah.
I'm not sure I buy the theory they've been floated that she did this because she wants to be running. I do think she wants to run for governor one day. She always has wanted to, but I don't think those are the people you would pick if you were doing it for a future run, because these aren't names of people who have, except for someone with Adam Joseph, they're not the people who get Unite here to the table and say we're going to win this election.
Yeah, but they're
not
do,
meeting in the
but they
Italian
are
restaurant.
the people that
I think all those
foundational.
people are very politically connected.
Listen,
and savvy.
right?
Yeah.
Those
All
are
of
the
them.
people foundationally you want to build that team,
Right.
right? Because
You may
those
not
are the
want-
players.
Yeah, build is the right word.
Yeah,
that's the
what
key
you
word.
want when you
rather.
build.
Yeah,
Not
that-
too flashy.
Right, exactly.
No
It's-
too much attention.
Right.
That's
People are
the
not gonna on
foundation.
first look. They're not gonna be like, oh.
Yeah,
They're gonna
yeah.
be like, oh, whatever.
Right.
But those of us in the know, we're like, okay, I
It's a
see
good
why you
building
did
block.
that. I
Yep.
know why you picked that. I know. I see. So
Especially
yeah.
when you bring someone over from Congress. Huh?
Listen, Susan Bisenwick, I see you, girl. I see what you're doing. She's like, I'm
Nice
gonna cover all my bases.
Oh, yeah.
Black women,
Yep.
Latinos.
Yeah.
So what do you
White
think?
men
What do you think?
with
all these,
black names.
What do you think all these board of aldermen people are doing?
What's that?
What are all these aldermen doing?
Where?
Alderwomen. Well, last night at City Hall. So for years they've been arguing, how do we create a new version of the Civilian Review Board to monitor the
Oh
cops
God.
and give it teeth? They were the ones who said we need a stronger version. They had a whole referendum, but then they keep failing to create a new version because they don't really give it teeth because they didn't want to have subpoena power. Activists are bugging them saying we need to have subpoena power. So last night they had a 2-hour meeting to decide how to go forward with the vote Monday and deal with the review issue. It's a little bit complicated. If you go to the front page of the Independent today, Thomas Breen has a story. Markeisha Ricks has some previous stories. But here's what bugs me. So last night they were in a room last night to talk about what's going to happen.
I love
Okay,
that.
they called it a Democratic caucus.
Uh-huh.
So that means only the members of the Board of Aldermen Democratic Caucus.
Is there anybody
Right.
else on that board?
Really?
All 30 members of the Board of Alders belong to the Democratic Caucus.
Mhm.
Okay.
So 28 are Democrats and 2 are independents who caucus with Democrats. So they get to have their meeting privately of whether all rights should be a public meeting because they call it a Democratic caucus.
Mhm.
Right.
Now, they could do it legally because the law was written that if just members of a party want to get together, they could talk about business privately. But if the body itself gets together, the public has a right to know what they're arguing.
But
When
they're a caucus.
everybody is in that party, they can do it all in private. And the reason I think it's sick is because they've been doing this for years now.
Then change the rules.
In their public meetings, they have a whole board caucus where they don't talk about anything real for 2 minutes. They have public board alders meeting. If anyone ever tries to debate, the president just goes gangster and shuts them down. Remember, Evelyn Rodriguez tried to even discuss something, and they said we don't do that here in the public portion of a meeting. But they lock the door for 2 hours and talk about what they're really going to do in the public's business over and over again by using a loophole in a law that was written to do the opposite of what they say, which is to make government transparent but allow party business to be conducted in secret. When the party becomes the government, we no longer have a transparent government that lets us in on what they're doing in our name with our authority and
So
our money.
I'm sorry. What's your point?
My point is that that
he
they're-
won sin. That's not
No, my point is that the
Yeah.
Board of
All one sin.
Alders last night showed again that they have utter contempt for the public's right
Why
to
they
know.
have contempt when they're using when they are well within their rights to do this?
They
They're
are,
within their
but I-
legal rights
yeah,
by
their
using
legal
it
rights.
against the intention of that law.
But I hear what you're saying.
I hear what
Dad.
you're saying, but
I'm with
then,
you,
then you
but
know
not all
what?
the way.
Then you need then
I-
somebody needs to make a
Change.
move.
Somebody gotta
Somebody
make a
needs to
change.
make a move to change it,
Yeah,
right?
someone needs to.
Because they
And
not.
the only one they're going to want that change are the folks like Paul Bass, the writers, the journalists.
I'm sorry. Where's the Republican Party? Why don't they ever put up candidates?
But they don't. It's not going to happen. Not here in this town.
Why doesn't somebody make a good run for it?
No, it's
See,
not
they
gonna
need
happen. Not
they need
here
a
in this town.
Republican Wendell Hart. to run some candidates on the regular. Honest to God.
They
so
had
that
a- they
people
had a
get
great-
used to
They
it.
had a great town chair, Jonathan
man, I
Wharton,
happen
who
to like
started
my town
recruiting
the
some
way
of
they
the
do.
But he
candidates.
left. I mean,
He left,
he
and then they
quit.
got some Trump guy who says he's
And he's
even
an
worse
idiot
about the public.
guy.
He tells his candidates not to speak to the press because they're not Fox News, and so no one finds out they're
See,
even running.
but see, that level of stupidity is what's going to do them in
And that's why,
everywhere.
And that's why we got to
But
leave him
but
to
but,
do
you-
that, man.
but my point that I'm making, if we, because you remember how Wendell Hart would run people, and you got used to hearing people's names, so it wouldn't be a shock to your systems because you knew he was, depending on what ward you were in, if you pissed him off or whatever, he'd run some candidates against you.
So who
and
is
that
the
gave you a
modern
good
Wendell
fight.
Hart?
So that's what I
See,
mean.
that's the story. We don't have these folks
The
anymore.
Republicans need a Wendell Hart to just run candidates,
But you're
even if
talking
they
about-
know they're going
but
to
you're
lose.
talking about being
to get
sharp.
and
You're
I
talking about
should
being
not,
sharp
I
people,
should not
yeah.
be giving Republicans a handbook.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna
but
give them
still-
one so
but-
they
but-
can shut up.
Look, you could sell
Start
it. You could,
running
you could tell it, you
candidates
could sell it. They ain't
so
gonna
that
get it.
people get used to knowing and run smart, savvy, sophisticated. Which
But now
there's
the
none
union
that
is the
exists.
one who's doing that.
None.
I know they don't have any right now.
They have absolutely none. You know why? Yeah, their allegiance, and this is what I was saying. I was saying earlier last year during the election season, there are Republicans out there that I would think, they might have some good thoughts, to put forward, and they may have good things to bring to the table. But the reason why I would refrain from voting for them is because they all fall in line and follow
Yeah.
that nonsense of a national party.
Yeah.
And again,
And that's going to kill them. If
Of course it
somebody
is.
could show some real leadership, and
Yep.
not that crazy Mitt Romney leadership.
Oh.
I'm talking real, like what, you know what they need?
I'm giving it 4
they
more
need
days.
some Republican
4 more
Kennedys.
days, he's gonna flip
They
again.
need some
Yep.
Republican Maxine Waters. They need
But
some.
now you're talking about people who are going to think who's going to think about others.
Well, yeah.
They don't
And that-
think
that-
about
and
others.
yeah.
All they
But that's
think
what I
about
mean. But
is-
that's
is
how they could rescue their
self-justice.
party.
Exactly, but they're not going to make
But
it.
they're not
because
going to do it. They want to
right.
burn it to the
And
ground.
there you have it. Free consulting advice for the Republican Party, courtesy of the Friday Pundits on
And don't call me
WNHH-FM.
because I'm not changing my party.
Thanks,
next time it's
everybody.
going to be sold, not
Thanks,
told.
everybody, for listening today to the inaugural 2019 version of Friday Pundits. Markeisha Ricks, we love you on your travels. We look forward to your return. Hope you came back safely. Join us next week.
Markeisha.
Thanks to the best pundits in the universe, Babs Rawls-Ivy,
Yes.
Normaria Rodriguez-Reyes, who takes a little bit of abuse over here, but we
You
apologize for
messing up
that.
you messing up
Joe
with Latino
Ugly
names.
and Harry Droz.
Paul, can I make a prediction before we leave? A national. Do you mind?
Trump is resigning today?
No, I'm good. But that would have been great. No, I like to talk about the Democratic side. Not talk, but a quick prediction on the Democrats who are going to run for president and who's stand a good ticket. My ticket is O'Rourke Harris,
Yes.
Castro Harris,
Yes.
O'Rourke Kavanaugh from Minnesota, Amy Kavanaugh.
Klobuchar.
Oh, Klobuchar, I'm sorry.
I went to college with her.
Klobuchar. Or Castro Klobuchar. Now, the thing is, if there's a Trump on the ticket, there's definitely going to be an O'Rourke.
Okay, before Harry, you get into an argument about, let me just national
and the
politics,
only
that'll be
reason, the
coming
only
up.
reason why I want to bring this up today is because on the 12th, which is next week, before we come back, what's her name? Castro is going to announce.
Oh, really?
And I want, he's gonna make it.
on that ticket. I
Yeah.
need Stacey Abrams on that ticket.
I like to see Stacey
Or Kamala
Abrams,
Harris.
but that's why
Well,
Kamala
that's
Harris
what I was
is
just
gonna
gonna
be
say.
on.
What do you have against black women, Joe? That
I have her right
We
here.
gotta
you,
go
yeah,
there.
you have her as vice president
But
in
that's
all
what-
of them. Why can't
but-
she be the head of the ticket?
Because that's not how the ticket is
All
gonna
right.
fly.
See how
Okay.
see, look at that.
Okay, that's a preview of national politics with Harry and Joe. Thanks for hanging in with our local Pundit Friday. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience, performing I Wish I Knew How It'd Feel to Be Free, from the group CD, A Plea for Kamala Harris. Now, we know what it's like to be free. We just got to remember to book our flight free with us all weekend long. And New Haven's home for community radio, WNH.